Welcome to the Estonian National Museum's permanent exhibition, Echo of the Urals, which talks about the Finno-Ugric and Samoyedic peoples, the linguistic relatives of the Estonians. There are about 1 or 1.1 million Estonians in the world, which makes us a rather small numbered people. So it's good to know that we're not alone, we have relatives. And altogether, there are more than 20 different Finno-Ugric peoples in the world, with a total of 24 or 25 million people. What makes us relatives? The scientists have a theory that thousands of years ago there was a group of people speaking this ancestral language of contemporary Finno-Ugric languages. They lived somewhere near the Ural mountain range, which divides Asia and Europe. And as smaller groups went to different directions, they lost contact with each other, but started to communicate with the other peoples they met on their way. So the languages became different from each other. And nowadays it may be really difficult to understand each other. Still, the linguists have found out some very essential similarities in these languages, like, for example, similarities in grammatical structure and some mutual vocabulary, as in verbs, numbers, also about nature and humans' body parts.
Sai.
Seim.
Sei.
Sev.
Shincha.
Senza.
San.
Sam.
Sen.
Sielmä.
Seimä.
Shi.
Shin.
Jalmi.
Silma.
Silma.
Silmä.
Silmä.
Silm.
Silmä.
Silmä.
Estonians, Finns and Hungarians have their own state, but this is not the case with the rest of the Finno-Ugric peoples. Most of them live in nowadays Russian Federation, also Livonians in the Republic of Latvia, and the Samis in 4 countries: Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia. So we introduce those people without their own state, and show here in the exhibition more about their traditional culture and way of life, as it was nearly 100 or more years ago. Joram, we have come to the home of a Komi family. The Komis live in the northeastern part of Europe, in the Russian Federation, and their homeland lies from the thunders in the north through the vast forests up until the plains suitable for agriculture in the south. And the winters there can be really harsh. thus it's simply essential to have warm log houses with large ovens. And the men have traditionally been hunters and trappers very often, thus spending a lot of time out in the wild. And the duty of keeping the household in order has lied on the shoulders of women. The place in front of the oven is reserved for the family members. So whoever visits the home must know where to go and what not to do. But don't get me wrong, the Komis, as all the Finno-Ugric peoples, are very hospitable people and simply love to treat guests with their delicious homemade food. Sechpur. South of the Komis live the Udmurts, a hard-working people whose main activities have traditionally been animal husbandry and growing crops in the fields. Linguistically, Komis and Udmurts are also quite similar. Next to me is an Udmurt bride who is prepared to live her old life full of freedom and choice, and from now on she must take care of her family, children and the whole household. Weddings form a so-called threshold in many traditional cultures. So whereas a woman takes a lot of responsibility from now on, she also has a step up in a social prestige, because the married women and men have the most to say in the traditional village society, which still plays a big part in these cultures, especially in the countryside. Salam Lija. While the bride was an Udmurt, then the bridegroom here is a Mari, a member of another Finno-Ugric people whose main villages lie near the great Volga river. The Maris can be considered as very temperamental people, and indeed their dances and songs are so full of life and soul. And some also say that they are the last pagans of Europe. Indeed, they have preserved many traditions, beliefs, rituals, and we can see from him that his shirt is decorated with very beautiful red ornaments, and they have a special meaning. It's to avoid the evil spirits and entities to enter his shirt, disturbing his life in such an important moment as the weddings. So the Mari traditional mythology is full of gods, deities and all kinds of spirits affecting our life, for the good or for the bad. Shumbrat. Not far from the Maris live the Mordvins, or actually two different ethnic groups, the Ersias and the Mokshas, whose languages and cultures are very similar to each other, so they have also sometimes been named as one, as Mordvins, but they themselves keep these things separated. And they have been traditionally involved in agriculture, but the women have also been very skilled embroiderers, and men beekeepers and wood carvers. And we can see here a young Herzian woman with two linden barrels. The barrels are for keeping all these pieces of cloth, and it takes several hundreds of hours for a young girl to prepare these for her future marriage. Usually she has done it with the help of her friends, And the barrels are made and gave her by either her father or a future husband or a father of a future husband. And they also serve a practical purpose, because in case of a fire or other accident at home, only one person, maybe the woman herself, is able to roll the barrel out of the house, thus saving all this extremely hard work. I am in front of a small cottage, which in fact is familiar to most of the Estonians and many Finno-Ugric peoples in general. And it's a sauna, or to be more precise, an old-style smoke sauna. This sauna here belongs to a Karelian family. And Karelians are a Finno-Ugric people who live east of the present-day Finland, in the territory of Russian Federation. There are lots of similarities in Finnish and Karelian cultures. In old times, many Karelians were famous singers. Some of their songs have found their way to the Finnish and Karelian epic, Kalevala. But the love for the sauna and its positive sides is still alive, both in Karelians, but also other peoples living in this region. The traditional smoke sauna has dark, sooty walls and a stove in one corner. The stove doesn't have a chimney, so all the smoke must be first ventilated out before people can come in. And in old times, sauna wasn't only the place where to wash or relax, it could be also for magical rituals, and we will hear a love spell of a young Karelian girl. Terinch. There are not many Finno-Ugric peoples who live near the sea. Among Estonians and Finns, also Livonians belong to this list. And they have been fishermen and seafarers living on the coast of present-day Latvia. And this is why in our showcase here we can see also most of the items related to these activities. The number of Livonians nowadays is quite small. There are only about 200 or 300 people who identify themselves as Livonians, and the number of speakers of Livonian is even much smaller. But that doesn't mean that we should talk about extinction, because culturally they are very active. They publish books, all kinds of internet materials. They learn the language of their ancestors, and thus, even when they are few, they are still preserving their culture, language, and identity. Some Finno-Ugric peoples live in quite difficult ecological conditions. A life in the far north, with very cold and dark winters, simply requires special skills to survive. But these peoples, they don't only survive, but also feel good here and call these places their home. One such people is the Samis, the Arve. The Samis live in the territory that lies from the nowadays Norway, Sweden, Finland, and partly also Russia, so altogether 4 present-day countries. And because of the very wide area, there are numerous different dialects of Sami, or we can also say that they are different languages, because the speakers don't always understand each other. The Samis traditionally have been hunters, fishermen, handicraft makers, but also reindeer herders. And reindeer is a very important animal to the Samis even nowadays. Since a reindeer is a migratory animal, then the people have also been forced to adopt their lifestyle and be migratory too. The traditional Sami hut is very light and quite small, but the whole family fit in, because in the past people didn't need that much personal space around, as maybe we do. The lightness of the hut also served practical purposes, because as mentioned, a reindeer is a migratory animal and moves between summer and winter pastures, and the people simply needed to follow as quickly as possible. And because of this, when it was already obvious that the reindeers were about to move to a new place, the family just packed their things as fast as possible and followed the herd of reindeers. Also, the interior part of the hut is very carefully divided into certain places. In the center, of course, there was a fireplace, but around them was a special place for the head of the household, the man, and the woman on the back side of the tent. And then there were special places for children and sometimes even servants. We can see a very small baby child inside too. Vushavula. Our trip around the Finno-Ugric world has come to the last place, and we have come in front of the home of a Hanti family. The Hantis and the Mansis live very far from the Estonian perspective, about 3,000 kilometers east from here, on the other side of the Ural mountain range, in the vast plainlands of Siberia. And their homeland is full of forests and also very swampy at parts. So the Hanti people have traditionally been hunters, fishermen, and also gatherers of various forest seeds and plants. And here we can see a Hanti family living inside. Here is a woman in red sitting and doing some kind of handicraft, usually of leather, fur or birch bark, and of course doing all kinds of other necessary works too. Whereas her husband in blue is just lying in the background. Many ethnologists have thought that maybe the Hanti men were extremely lazy by their nature, but the reality is that the men have been hunters, hunting especially squirrels, sables and martens for their fur in the winter time, and these hunting trips could have taken weeks. When the man returns home, he's so exhausted that he simply needs some time to rest. And this is why we have also caught him on that moment. Also, the interesting fact about the Hantis is that up until these days, the bear has been seen as a special creature. The oldest son of a main god, Num Torum, and for this reason, bear is worshipped. And in case a hunter kills a bear, then the bear is provided full funerary rites. people sing and dance to him and provide him delicious food in order to his soul not be very angry because of this accident. Because it's believed that the soul of the bear can reincarnate as a new bear and have vengeance on the hunter who killed him.